When upon life's billows you are tempest-tossed, when you are discouraged, thinking all is lost, count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God hath done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God hath done. Are you ever burdened with the load of care? Does the cross seem heavy you are called to bear? Count your many blessings, every doubt will fly, and you will be singing as the days go by. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God hath done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God hath done. When you look to others with their lands and gold, think that Christ has promised you his wealth untold. Count your many blessings, money cannot buy your reward in heaven nor your home on high. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God hath done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God hath done. So amid the conflict, whether great or small, do not be discouraged, God is over all. Count your many blessings, angels will attend, help and comfort give you to your journey's end. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God hath done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God hath done.
Blue skies and rainbows and sunbeams from heaven are what I can see. When my Lord is living in me, I know that Jesus is well and alive today. He makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone, since he promised me that we never would part. Tall mountains, green valleys, the beauty that surrounds me, all makes me aware of the one who made it all. I know that Jesus is well and alive today. He makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone, since he promised me that we never would part. Green grass and flowers, the blooming in springtime, all works of the Master I live for each day. I know that Jesus is well and alive today. He makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone, since he promised me that we never would part. I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus, for it is the power that saves us today. I know that Jesus is well and alive today. He makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone, since he promised me that we never
Search me and try me, Master, today. Whiter than snow, Lord, wash me just now, as in thy presence humbly I bow. Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Hold o'er my being absolute sway. Fill with thy spirit till all shall see Christ only always living in me.
If the skies above you are gray, you are feeling so blue. If your cares and burdens seem great all the whole day through, there's a silver lining that shines in the heavenly land. Look by faith and see it, my friend. Trust in His promises, friend. Sing and
be happy,
press on to the goal. Trust in Him
who leadeth
who leads you. He will keep your soul. Let all
know where you
be faithful. Look to
Jesus
Him and pray. Lift your voice and praise Him in song. Sing and be happy today. Often we are troubled and tired, sick with sorrow and pain. There are others living in sin, blessed with earthly gain. Take new courage, we cannot tell what tomorrow may bring. When the dark clouds vanish away, then your heart truly can sing. Sing and
be happy,
be happy, press
along
to the goal. Trust
in
Him
who
who leads you. He will keep your soul. Let all
know where you
be faithful. Look
to
Jesus
and
Him and pray. Lift your voice and praise Him in song. Sing and be happy today. Oft we fail to see the rainbow up in heaven's fair sky, when it seems the fortunes of earth frown and pass us by. There are things we know that are worth more than silver and gold, if we hope and trust Him each day. We shall have pleasure untold. Sing and
be
be happy, press along to the goal. Trust Him
who leadeth
who leads you. He will keep your soul. Let all
know where you
be faithful. Look to
Jesus
Him and pray. Lift your voice and praise Him in song.
I think we got a mic now. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. Feel free to come on in and grab a seat. Excited to be here with you all. We have yet another opportunity to engage in the study of David and his life, and hopefully something that will help us all be better citizens in God's kingdom, better brothers and sisters of each and every one of us, and just better people altogether. This here is an image, and it's one of my nemesis. It's a line. a line of people, right? I am not fond of lines. But this line here shows a bunch of people. It looks like they're waiting, and they have clipboards in their hands. And right above the young lady sitting in the front is a sign that says, Job and Training Expo. Job and Training Expo. I simply went in and a picture of, and looked for an image of long lines at a job fair or, employment office or something of that nature. And this image came up. And usually whenever you're in a situation where there is a spike in unemployment or a lot of people looking for a job, it's not just one thing that caused it. I think back when I was in college, and when I first started, it was 99. And it was right around the time where a company, an energy trading company based in Houston that was really big and really well renowned and loved by the stock market, and crashed in the course of about 30 days. That's Enron. And I remember this young lady that was at school, and she was really challenged because she couldn't get financial aid. And she couldn't get financial aid because the way financial aid works is it's based off of your parents' tax return for the previous year. Well, that previous year, her mother was employed at Enron and well employed. But now, in the present, her mother wasn't employed. And the financial situation had changed greatly, and so this young lady was not going to be able to continue her education that semester because she just fell in this unfortunate situation where there just really wasn't any immediate help. And so the family is in this financial straits not because of one thing. It could have been that, there were decisions made along the way that could have made their financial situation a little bit better. It's where they could have weathered this storm with, let's say, savings or some additional funds. But it also could have been that the people who were making the decisions at Enron, or the people that were monitoring Enron, Arthur Andersen, each one of those mistakes led to a situation to where this young lady couldn't go to school. And I bring this story up because if I look at the world around us, the situation that we live in, it's dire, and it's been dire for a really long time. Since the fall, this world has been dying, and people in it. And over time, God has put in place a group of people that were set to help those people and keep them from dying. And for each person that dies, I put before you that it's not one thing that caused them to die, but a multitude of things that have come together and put them in a situation to where they themselves are in jeopardy of physical and also spiritual death. And what I want to do is just cover a particular story in the Bible where someone dies, and I say, I don't know that it's all his fault. And at the same time, I want to challenge us to look at the world around us and say, to what extent am I contributing to people's death? And what can I do to prevent death? To what extent am I contributing, and to what extent can I prevent? Let's have a word of prayer, and then we'll jump into it. Merciful Father in heaven, we thank you for the day. And we're so thankful for this being the Lord's Day, a day in which we can come together, and that through all of the acts that you've requested of us or given to us such that we can glorify your name, we are also recharged. And for that, we say thank you so very much. Lord, we're thankful for your patience, the fact that you have so much patience. We don't even realize just how patient you are because there's so many things that we do that are missteps, and you simply forgive us. And we're thankful for that. And we're thankful for your word, which can help inform us and keep us from being ignorant and can help us draw closer to you. Lord, for this world, we send a prayer to you asking that you'll bless us. Bless us as your people to have strong hands and willing hearts to go out and do the work that you've appointed to us. And as we do that work, we pray that you will bless the hands, that you will multiply our efforts, and you will allow them to find success. For our sins, we say that we're so very sorry, but we're thankful for Jesus and his sacrifice. And it's in his name we offer this prayer. Amen. I just kept pressing buttons, apparently. I guess I was just pressing buttons while I was praying. I guess that's what happened, right? I want to go to 1 Chronicles chapter 13. This is the story of where David is bringing back the Ark of the Covenant. And we'll talk about the Ark of the Covenant. And what I want to do at some point, I want to spend a lot of time about how did we even get in this situation. But for context, I do want to read the story to you. So 1 Chronicles chapter 13. We'll start in verse number 1. I still hear pages turning. That's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful sound. You can't hear pages turning for me. Sorry. I go digital. David consulted with the commanders of thousands and of hundreds, with every leader. And David said to all the assembly of Israel, "If it seems good to you, and from Yahweh our God, let us send abroad to our brothers who remain in all the lands of Israel, as well as to the priests and Levites in the cities that have pasture lands, that they may be gathered to us. Then let us bring again the ark of our God to us, for we did not seek it in the days of Saul." All the assembly agreed to do so, for the things was right in the eyes of all the people. So David assembled all Israel from the Nile of Egypt to Lebo-hamath to bring the ark of God from Kirjath-jearim. And David and all of Israel went up to Baalah, that is, to Kiriath-jearim, that belongs to Judah, to bring up from there the ark of God, which is called by the name of Yahweh, who sits enthroned above the cherubim. And they carried the ark of God on a new cart from the house of Abinadab, and Uzzah and Ahio were driving the cart. And David and all Israel were celebrating before God with all their might, with song and lyres and harps and tambourines and cymbals and trumpets. And when they came to the threshing floor of Shidon, Uzzah put out his hand to take hold of the ark, for the oxen stumbled. And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against Uzzah, and he struck him down because he put out his hand to the ark, and he died there before God. This is a disturbing story. There is a thing, and a good thing, that David wants to do. David says, we need to go get the Ark of the Covenant, and we need to bring it back to its rightful place. And this is problematic because we did not inquire of it. We did not seek it out during the days of Saul. And so he wants to bring it back and put it in its rightful place, and he doesn't want to do this in silence. He makes a very big deal of this. He has everyone come back. He says, if you can come, I want you to come. And what we're going to do is we're going to make this tremendous celebration from where it currently is all the way back to the place that I've set up in Jerusalem. And it's a huge ordeal. And there's a party going on. There's this huge march and parade to bring back the ark. It's a good thing. And on the way back, the oxen stumble. And Uzzah sees that the ark of the covenant is about to fall. And so he instinctively puts out his hand to it, and God strikes him dead. And you can only imagine the shock that happens when this happens. You can imagine that the parade immediately stops. We were playing all of those instruments, and the music just stops. The dancing and singing just stops. And it goes from a moment of joy and jubilation to a moment of shock, awe, and we'll later read fear. God has interrupted this celebration because someone touched the Ark of the Covenant. There's something significant going on here. And I want us to look into it. And first, let me just ask you, why did Uzzah die? Why does Uzzah die? I hear that he wasn't supposed to touch it. That's correct. Anyone else? Why does Uzzah die? I'm sorry? He disobeyed. I think you're right. And yet, as I did in the introduction, I think there's a lot more to it as to why did Uzzah die. Now, I want to make sure I'm clear about something. I'm not exonerating Uzzah at all. And if you've been around me long enough, you know that I have a hard time, just kind of poking a finger at some people in the Bible. There's a few I have no problem poking my finger at. Yeah, you're a bad dude. But there's so many people that I read about in the Bible, and I'm kind of like, okay, so just so we're clear, I would have died. Okay. If I'm Uzzah and I see the ark falling, I'm probably going to instinctively stick my hand out. I have a hard time judging him, right? And so that influences how I look at the Bible, rightly or wrongly. But I do think that there were other contributing factors to where we got here. And I want to make sure I'm clear. I'm not exonerating him. I'm not at all. Ezekiel chapter 18, the text says, the soul that sins will die. Each man for his own sin. And so Uzzah does die because he wasn't supposed to touch the ark, okay? But I think there are still other factors at play that we can take out. He wasn't supposed to touch it. Look at Numbers chapter 4 and verse number 15. It says, and when Aaron and his sons have finished covering the sanctuary and all the furnishings of the sanctuary, as the camp sets out, after that the sons of Kohath shall come to carry these. Now, what are these? The items that are in the most holy of holies. But they shall not touch the holy things, lest they die. God had already said, don't touch them or you will die. And the Ark of the Covenant is one of those things. So let me ask you all, what exactly is the Ark of the Covenant? What's the Ark of the Covenant? Say it one more time. A box holding the tablets, okay. That's true. Anyone else? Ark of the Covenant. The mercy seat of God. What else? I think this question is one of the reasons Uzzah dies. I think Uzzah dies because he and the rest of his people don't know what the Ark of the Covenant is. Now, this is a depicting of what the Ark of the Covenant looks like. I heard earlier it's a box, and that's true. It's a piece of furniture that would have sat in the most holy of holies. Now, just so we're clear, when I say most holy of holies, I'm talking about inside the tabernacle or temple, whichever phase you're talking about. And inside the tent or tabernacle, there's a curtain. And that curtain divides the tent into two sections. There's the holy place, is where you first enter. And behind that curtain is the most holy place. The Ark of the Covenant, it resides there, in the most holy of holies. And inside, as we heard earlier, were the tablets. The 10 Commandments were located inside of that. Also, if you read Hebrews chapter 9, it says that there was also Aaron's rod, the one that budded, and there was also a golden urn wherein there was manna that was put in there. And on top of this box was a lid made of gold called the mercy seat. That lid had 2 cherubims, and their wings were spread. They're facing each other. And this is called the mercy seat. This is what the Ark of the Covenant is. But its significance is meted out in Exodus 25. This is Exodus 25. This is when God is actually explaining, and he's putting all the ordinances for worship in place. So this is just the very beginning, right? They just got over the side of the Red Sea, and God is trying to explain what he wants done in terms of worship. Exodus 25 and 22, he says to Moses, there I will meet you. Where? At the Ark of the Covenant in the Holy of Holies. This is where I'm going to meet you, Moses. And from above the mercy seat and between the 2 cherubim on the Ark of the Testimony, I will speak with you about all that I will give you in commandment for the people of Israel. He says, this is where you can find me. Another way of thinking about it is, this is God's throne. I am going to be in the most holy of holies. When I'm here on earth and my spirit is here, this is my throne. This is where I sit. As a matter of fact, David said he's enthroned on the mercy seat. This is literally his throne. One of the first reasons that I think Uzzah dies is he doesn't understand what the mercy seat is, what the Ark of the Covenant is. It is not an ordinary piece of furniture. This is God's throne. It is holy. It is sacred. I want to come back to Uzzah in just a minute, but one of the contributing factors to Uzzah's death, I believe, is generational ignorance and indifference. Generational ignorance and indifference. What do I mean about that? I mean, long before Uzzah got on the scene, I think there was a bunch of people that didn't understand nor care about the Ark of the Covenant. I want to start in Judges. In the book of Judges, if you read through the book of Judges, this is without a doubt one of the saddest books that you will read in the Old Testament. And as you read through it, what you will see is there's this cycle of rebellion, oppression, crying out to God, and God saving them. And if you read, he'll tell you that he has judges that he's appointed. These judges are going to save the people from their oppressors. And if you just look at the judges and who they are and what they represent and how they behave themselves, what you will see is they become progressively worse, morally speaking. And the people themselves become progressively worse, morally speaking. They are corrupt. And the author of the book of Judges in chapter 2, starting with verse number 8, he leaves us these words. He says, "And Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of Yahweh, died at the age of 110 years. And they buried him within the boundaries of his inheritance in Timnath-Heres, in the country of Ephraim, north of the mountain of Gash. And all the generations also were gathered to their fathers." In other words, Joshua and all of his peers, his contemporaries, the people of his age, his generation, the people who came across the Jordan, the people who defeated most of the Canaanites, they died. But the nation continued on, and it says, "And there arose another generation after them, who did not know Yahweh or the works that he had done for Israel." There is ignorance of who God is. And that ignorance would proceed years and years and years. And then we get to 1 Samuel chapter 4. And this cycle of disobedience, disobedience and oppression, it continues. And so by the time we get to 1 Samuel chapter 4, they are fighting with the Philistines. And the Philistines had just defeated them in battle. And they're not understanding why did they defeat us in battle. And so they asked the question, 1 Samuel chapter 4, verse number 3. "And when the people came up to the camp, the elders of Israel said, 'Why has Yahweh defeated us today before the Philistines? Let us bring the Ark of the Covenant of Yahweh here from Shiloh, that it may come among us and save us from the power of our enemies.'" Now, it's very interesting that they said the Ark of the Covenant, it's going to be what saves us. You see, later David would say, "God has saved me from the bear. God has saved me from the lion." And the Philistine, well, the same thing's going to happen to him. He's going to die. David understood that it was God. However, at this point, this generation didn't understand that. They had seen, or heard, I should say, heard the stories about the Ark of the Covenant. How it was the Ark of the Covenant that went before them as they crossed the Red Sea. How it was the Ark of the Covenant that went first with the priests, and they put their feet in the water and they crossed over the Jordan. How it was the Ark of the Covenant that went before them as they marched around Jericho. They've heard these stories. They understand that there was something tied to the Ark of the Covenant that was really impressive and worked in their favor. And so they said, let's go get it so it will save us from our oppressors. And so there's this misunderstanding of what the Ark of the Covenant is. Somehow, some way, they've gotten the idea that this Ark of the Covenant, it is what's winning us the battle. This piece of furniture is winning us the battle. Not that it's God. If we were to go back to Judges, there's a theme that's stated throughout the book. If you just read that book all the way through, what you're going to hear 4 times is this phrase, and there was no king in Israel, and every man did what was right in his own eyes. Not that there really wasn't a king. Yahweh, God, is king. But to the people, they ain't got a king. And little do they know they have a throne, but the throne is an empty throne. You're right. You don't have a king. And so when these people say, let's go get the throne, they don't realize they're saying, let's go get the throne. And they don't realize that what was going out in front of the troops at Jericho was not just a throne, not just a piece of furniture, but it's actually Yahweh God that is marching around the city. They don't realize that when they crossed over the Jordan, it was Yahweh God that was there in the Jordan that split the Jordan. And so now, because there is no king, you've dethroned him, but his throne still exists. You carried an empty throne into battle. And because they have no king fighting for them, of course, they are defeated. And as part of that defeat, the Philistines actually capture the Ark of the Covenant. And this is that point where Eli and his sons die. And the covenant is with the Philistines for 7 months. Now, Israel might not believe they have a king, but God wanted to make sure the Philistines understood that he is Yahweh God, the true God. And so, because they considered it spoils of war, they put it in the temple of Dagon, their God. And wouldn't you know, Dagon quickly realized who is king. And so if you want to, please continue reading. Start in 1 Samuel chapter 4 and continue reading, but you'll see that real soon, the Philistines realize we have to get rid of this Ark of the Covenant. God, Yahweh, is powerful, and he is meting out punishment against us. And so they give it back. And how did they give it back? 1 Samuel chapter 6, starting with verse number 10. The men did so. Well, what did they do? They listened to their elders. The elders said, hey, you need to give this back and don't give it back empty-handed. And he told them what to do in order to send it back. And so the Philistine men did so. And they took 2 milk cows and yoked them to a cart and shut up the calves at home. And they put the ark of Yahweh on the cart and the box with the golden mice and the images of their tumors. And they sent it back. And through a series of events, if you keep reading, it ends up in the house of Abinadab. Now, this is the first time that the Ark of the Covenant is put on a cart. This was introduced by the Philistines, who have no idea how to handle it. They don't have the Old Testament law. They're just trying to get it back. And so it gets to the house of Abinadab, chapter 7. And the men of Kiriath Jearim came and took up the ark of Yahweh and brought it to the house of Abinadab on the hill. And they consecrated his son Eleazar to have charge of the ark of Yahweh. From that day, the ark was lodged at Kiriath Jearim. A long time passed, some 20 years. This 20 years, I'm going to be transparent, is in somewhat of a debate. I'm leaning right now that it's actually more than 20 years. It just depends on the context and how you read this particular verse. Just so we're clear, these events are happening before Saul becomes king. Saul will become king, and then Saul will die. David becomes king, and then David will go and get the Ark of the Covenant from Abinadab's house. Well, if you read over in Acts chapter 13, it says that Saul was king for 40 years. So there's a little bit here. It's not a controversy. It's just how you translate or how you interpret both of those passages. There's a nuance to both of those. It doesn't matter. The point is, a long time passed. A long time passed that the throne of God was not in the throne room, the Holy of Holies. It was actually in Abinadab's house. Now, there's a problem with that. I think it's an obvious problem, right? The fact that it's sitting there. And it's sitting there primarily because it's lost its significance. At first, people thought that this was the mechanism that was saving them. But then when they realized it's not, well, what value does it have? And there's also fear of it because some people had looked upon it when they weren't supposed to and they died. And so you have this multiplication of factors, and now it's just sitting at Abinadab's house and it's forgotten because they don't know what it is, and it just isn't assigned value. And this generational ignorance persisted over decades. 20 years if you take this particular passage, over 40 years if you use King Saul's reign. The point is, a very long time. Long enough to be forgotten, long enough for people to not know about the Ark of the Covenant. And this can happen today, and I think it is happening today. So let me ask you the question, what are some ways that generational ignorance or indifference is affecting us today? I think there's a general ignorance of God, of who we are, what our purpose is. And so how is that affecting the world that you live in today?
So many people are being taught that the Bible isn't worth anything.
Yeah. People are being taught just the Bible's not worth anything. They misunderstand the value of the Bible. And so they're taught that. What else? What's happening in our world today because we just totally misunderstand either God, ourselves, or things of that nature?
People can see a couple Christians that may not be the best representation of Christians, and then Christians have a bad life because of that.
Yeah, so in other words, there's people that are acting as Christians or under the name of Christians that are poorly representing God. As a matter of fact, in Ephesians, I believe in 3rd chapter, he says, all day long, my name is blasphemed among the unbelievers, and he says, it's because of you. Good point. What else? What are some other things that are happening because we have this generational indifference?
I think the same thing that happened then over time, people forget what this means.
Mm-hmm.
They forget about Yahweh. They forget that he is the God of the living and the dead.
Yeah, people just simply forget who
Yeah.
God is. I think it happens a lot with children. You have one generation that doesn't see the connectivity of this fellowship as being of value. And so maybe I don't show up like I used to. Maybe Sunday nights aren't that important. And not that I have other reasons why I can't be here. I just don't come. I just don't see the value. I came in the morning. What's the problem? I don't come on Wednesday nights or the other Bible studies. And, well, the Bible doesn't command it, so why do it? And your children are going to pick up on that. And if you're at home and you're not communicating either through action, most importantly action, or through words, the importance thereof, they're going to pick up on it. And guess what? When they get to make decisions, it won't be to show up because they're ignorant of its importance. They just simply look at it as something that I can do if I want to do, or if I don't want to do, I don't do it. And there's so many other areas where this shows up. Yes?
Just wanted to say also, as a result of that generational ignorance and indifference, wickedness seems to grow exponentially.
Yes.
Because you read in the Bible that this king or this person was worse than all the wicked before him. And same today.
Yes.
The wickedness grows exponentially.
If you didn't hear that, the comment was, in the place of morality, in the place of godliness, wickedness spreads exponentially. It is like a plague because it is a plague. It spreads incredibly fast. Yes?
I think part of that, in the Old Testament, they were told to remind their children every day in the morning when they raise up, when they go sit down,
Yes.
every moment they're supposed to be reminding their children
Yeah.
of their history.
So Milt is,
Lord. And that same thing should apply to us today.
yes.
And I don't think we emphasize that.
Milt is quoting from Deuteronomy chapter 6, and he's talking about the fact that the text says that you shall teach it to your children diligently. And he talks about all of the interactions that you should be having with your children. He's saying one of the challenges of generational indifference is you just don't do that. And the result is what we just discussed. The children don't know any better, and because of an indifference to morality, immorality pervades. So, fair enough, this is the world we live in, but how can we counteract that? Because remember, what I wanted to get at is, this is the world, what can we do about it? So what can we do? And I'm just going to be honest, right? I get it. For many of us in here, our children grown. Me included, right? And maybe we have grandchildren. Fine, fair enough. But what can we do? What are some of the things that we can do? Yep, this is where we talk back. I'm going to take a sip of coffee, right? The comment was be an example. Listen, just because they're not in your house, oh, I got a hand.
I think that we've lost a lot of enthusiasm
Mm,
on God's word.
okay.
If we showed more enthusiasm for how happy we can make it.
The comment was, oh, sorry, finish up.
I was thinking about
Yeah, so the comment was enthusiasm. Just show some enthusiasm for God's word. And not just here, but just in life in general. The comment I was going to make is that, and let's just talk about here. We just finished VBS. There was a lot of kids. And there are kids over in that building over there, and they're in that phase where we're trying to actively influence them. We're trying to counteract this right here. And God love them all. And God love those teachers that are spending their time. And God love those parents who are trying to do it at home. And what I'm going to say is that that's still not enough. It takes us to be involved in their lives. We have to show some interest in them, more than just class. If you are a person, I'm coming right to you. If you are a person that has a skill for teaching, I beg you, please, go teach. Even if there's just an experience that you can share. Maybe there's just, you know what, I can't take on a whole quarter, but you know what, I have an experience or I have an advice that I'd like to share with this age group. Hey, James, can you pick a Sunday to where I can go and share? That matters. Or maybe it's just showing an interest. Pick one and show an interest. That person that when they see you, they're ready to give you a high five. There's some interaction. There's something there that you're driving that action with. Yes?
I just wanted to say, I think that what we need to be willing to do and be able to do is to share the experiences that we've had
Mm-hmm.
with God in our lives
Yeah.
and how He's worked in your life and maybe prayed about a situation
Mm-hmm.
and God has come in and blessed you, guided you, and He did wisdom and discernment.
Yes.
And He has interacted with you and
Yeah.
that situation or, something like that, and I think being willing to share
Mm-hmm.
that those personal experiences is important.
Yeah, perfect. The comment was about sharing our experiences, right? It's very important, very important. I want to say it's in the introduction of 1 Thessalonians where Paul says, we were not only willing to share with you the gospel, but also of ourselves. There's a part of me that I'm willing to give to you. And so I believe that is super important. Let me hasten on because we're going to run out of time. I mentioned earlier that there are multiple contributing factors. I believe Uzzah's ignorance contributes. Obviously so, right? Uzzah, on some level, I want to say you should have known better, right? Notice the situation here. If we go back to 1 Samuel chapter 7, this is when the Ark of the Covenant comes back. It's been with the Philistines and it comes back. It says, and the men of Kirjath-jearim came and took up the Ark of Yahweh and brought it to the house of Abinadab, who's on the hill, okay? So it's at Abinadab's house. If we jump over to 2 Samuel chapter 6, we find out who Uzzah is. Starting in verse number 3, it says, "And they carried the ark of God on a new cart and brought it out the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill, and Uzzah and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, were driving it on a new cart." I didn't realize this, I didn't realize this till a few weeks ago. It's been in your house the whole time, your dad's house. You probably grew up with it. You telling me an important article from the temple is in your house and you don't know what it is? At no point did you or your father go and get the scroll and better understand what's in my house? There are opportunities for us to do better. There are things that we engage in all the time where I think we should really, really know what it is. If I was to spend time in Romans, one of the arguments that Paul brings up in chapter 10, he says, my heart's desire and prayer for them being Israel, is that they might be saved. He says, I bear them witness that they have a zeal for God. The challenge is that it's not according to knowledge. For being ignorant of God's righteousness and seeking to establish their own, they did not submit to God's righteousness. Everyone had good intentions along the way. Uzzah and David and all the leaders, they just didn't do it according to God's will. And I submit to you that there are times where we ourselves treat the things in our lives like the ark. Things that we should know more about, but maybe we don't. The will that God has in our lives. I think we should be concretely set on that. Like, what does God want out of us? Some of the things that we do when we come here on Sunday mornings. This is the Lord's table. Do we really understand what we're doing when we commune? I would dare say there's been some congregations that I've been at where I'm like, I don't think we get it. Especially when it came to evening worship. I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure we don't get it. And Paul said, because you don't understand, there's some people that's weak physically and spiritually, and some people have died. It kind of sounds like Uzzah. And so what I want to challenge us is as we interact with our faith, know what you're doing. Don't walk around ignorant. The Bible's there. And in our generation, oh my goodness, there are so many tools and so many, there are people who have spent their lives dedicated to making our lives easier. I'm looking at Gary in the back who's dedicated his life so that you and I can be closer to God. People have wrote commentaries. People train at seminaries. People teach at seminaries. There's so many resources. You can even use ChatGPT or some AI to help get closer to God, right? If you want to know something, confirm, right? Whatever it says, go to the Bible and confirm. But there's so many tools. And what I'm saying is we shouldn't walk around ignorant. And as I hasten on, I think there's also a leadership failure. I am a leader at my job. I am harsh when it comes to leadership. I'm very demanding of leadership. It doesn't matter. What's my title? I'm senior manager. I don't mind being in a room with directors and VPs and calling us out if we're guilty. And I did that just a few weeks ago, and it was about culture. And I was just like, okay, I don't know how we're going to expect our team to be better when we're not better. I am harsh on leadership when I see leadership go astray. And right now I have to call David out because David should have known better. First thing, the text says David consulted with the commanders of thousands and hundreds with every leader. But David didn't consult God, and normally he does. If you just read the story of David through his life, you'll see time and time again to where David says, Lord, shall we go up or shall we stay? What do you want me to do? And in this case, he doesn't. Now, he thinks he's doing a good thing, and he is, but it's just not according to knowledge. But he should have known better. This was on a new cart. He just did whatever it was already doing. It came in on a cart. They gave it a new cart and rolled it back out. He assumed that was good enough. This is what God was looking for. God wanted the priest to carry it on poles. he wants to be seated on his throne, carried through. This is an image from when the latest king in, I think it's Thailand, was crowned. He's seated on his throne, being carried through a parade. This is how God asked to be treated. Not pulled behind a horse and a cart. I grew up in America, and the images I have are the images I have. But when you tell me that someone is being pulled behind a cart, on a cart and a horse, do you know what comes to mind? Not chariots. This is what comes to mind. This is President Carter being laid to rest. Now, that's the image that it gives me today. God did not want me to have the image of him being laid to rest. God is alive. Or, even worse, it's a piece of furniture being moved on moving day. They don't know what they're dealing with. And because they don't know any better, they don't do better. But like I said, David should have known better. That's not good. Sorry. That was supposed to be a pop-up, and it's not a pop-up. But Deuteronomy chapter 17, it's interesting because there was a provision gave long before Israel asked for a king about what kings shall do when they rule Israel. It's interesting. God didn't want a king, but he gave a provision for kings. What this text says is that when he sits on his throne, he shall write for himself a copy of this law. It shall be approved by the Levitical priest, and it shall be with him, and he shall read it all the days of his life. In other words, David was supposed to, by his own hand, write his own copy of the law. And then he was supposed to read it every single day. Now, you can't tell me if you really did that, you wouldn't have several times come by the passage where it says, the priest shall carry it. David should have known. And for some reason, even David's ignorance. Yes? Is that a hand up? Oh, okay. Even David should have known. And so it is very dangerous if we have ignorant leaders as well. Because the leaders are the ones that's leading us. And they're getting us to do things that we believe is within God's will. And so leaders, whether you're leaders at home, and that's almost everyone in the room, whether you're leaders at jobs, whether you're a leader here in this congregation, a leader in the community, I need you to know God's will. I need you to know what his expectations are, and I need you to allow that to influence everything you do in your life. Uzzah died, and he didn't die simply because of his own failures. His ancestors failed him because they just didn't care. They were preoccupied following Baal and all these other gods. And he didn't understand that the throne of God is sitting in some other person's house instead of the throne room. And it just sat there for years and years and years. And Uzzah, you're responsible too because you got the throne of God sitting in your house and you don't even know what it is. And then leadership, you're responsible too because you should know better. If anyone should know better, it should be you. Especially if God has charged you in an age where paper is not easy to come by, but you have the resources to do it. You were supposed to write it, your own copy, and read from it daily. And apparently you're not doing it. And so I believe we have the ability to help this world immensely in many shapes and forms. So many people out there are dying, and I think there's something we can do about it. And I don't think we're asked to just be in a position to where we ignore it. And so I challenge each and every one of us, in the corner of the world that we have, what do you see that's not quite right? And what power do you have that you've been blessed with that we can do something about it? Because I think that's the way we prevent another soul from dying. And so I hope this has been helpful for you. God bless you.